This session is brought to you by Organican Pty Ltd. Organican is a registered company that sells and distributes organic foods. For ordering from Organican, go to www.organicanwealth.com. Organican, inspiring wealth. Okay, this is Convo Unscripted, where we actually talk our minds, our ideas, and our thoughts. A platform where we have conversations of intergenerational significance. And today we are blessed to be joined by a leader, an inspirational speaker, a mentor, a coach with over 10 years of experience in speaking and mentoring, a founder of Lesiba and Legaboka Inspirations. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And an information security specialist, Lesiba Kekana. Legaboka kopalopala khoro.
Yeah.
So yesterday I was just thinking, actually, since I was going to have you here, I was just trying to encounter, or actually, when was the first time I met Mr. Lesiba Kekana? And I don't actually have a specific time, but I've known you through the structure, which is, the Zion Christian Church Student Fellowship. Actually, when I came to the fellowship myself, you were a leader in the NEC. In fact, you were the chairperson of the NEC at the time. And I remember, man, the essence of your leadership and, the way in which, you packaged your leadership style with humility. And I remember I used to, listen to you speak. And in my mind, I would have this thing of like, I want to do this, I want to lead, and you're one of the people who actually inspires me when it comes to leadership. So maybe as a start, now I'm curious, what is leadership to you? How do you define leadership in your own terms? And, what is it, this thing? Like, we always talk about leadership here. So I'm just very much interested to hear from you of what is actually leadership for you.
Yeah, what an interesting question. When you get to do these things, but you never get to think of answering such questions. But yeah, I'll put it in as simple terms, as basic as possible. I love being very basic. Of course, if you listen to different people or you Google you surf the net, you'll find a lot of answers to that type of a question. But in the way I put it down, I simplify it in a way of saying, as a leader, you are an individual or maybe group, if we're talking about leaders, who have to pursue a mandate for a particular or a specific group of people. That's how I take it. So obviously that group will have principles, will have goals being put, if not on paper, but will be in mind. And then you as a leader is to ensure that you actually take that particular specific group to that desired destination. So you have to do it in many ways, using your skills, using the knowledge that you acquired, various sorts of knowledge, mixing them together and understanding exactly what represents that group at best. So for me, that is what I refer to as leadership. So the main thing is making sure that you drive that particular group in the direction which they have set towards the goal. I'll put it that way.
And I think that is actually a very perfect and a very academic, rich, definition there, Legaboka. As you're saying this, I'm just thinking in my mind, you spoke about the mandate, you spoke about principles at some point, and taking, the group or whatever constituency that you're leading on that mandate. But nowadays, in the current situations that we're in, we're observing things, for example, the political climate in the country is not that good. Also, if you look at some sort of governance indexes, they are also not that good. Also, now and then there are also scandals that come from, various corporate sectors. I mean, the recent one being the clicks ad that, provoked a lot of people. And also, if you look into Africa in general, you do also have a lot of problems. I mean, in Zimbabwe, you have a human rights violation issue. So my observation and my conclusion, I have to actually come to this conclusion to say, actually, I think we have a leadership crisis. That is just my observation. So in your own observations as a leader and as someone who actually partook into leadership roles and everything like that, where are we losing the ball, if we are losing the ball? Or what are some of those things that you feel like, this is something that maybe we're digressing on leadership, maybe based on your experiences and perhaps your observations as a member of society?
Interesting. Yes. In my opinion, or in my observation, I think where we actually losing it is when we bring competition into this whole thing. Competition, it's more about being selfish. It's not selfless, and that's not what leadership is about. So if in my mind I've been growing to say, I want to outsmart you, if I've seen you being in leadership, I believe that is a wrong way of approaching this whole leadership thing. So I need to be thinking it in a way that I'm inspired by you, as my predecessor, and I want to take over from you using the modern ways of doing things, inspire more, take it to the next height. So I think in my observation, when I check across the world and I observe in organizations, in companies as well, we somehow have been taught to be more competitive, than being collaborative. So everybody wants to, to come out as the best, so us coming out as the best pushes us to neglect what we're supposed to do in leadership. We focus on our individualism, and I think that is the crux of the problem in the leadership. And with that type of attitude, what tends to happen is, as soon as you lose interest, and then it gets to be autonomous. You continuously do that, and you end up not seeing anything wrong. So it becomes your second nature, it's in your blood, and that is the reason why when you would go to read the books about leadership, you would get to come across terms such as ethical, leadership, or ethics. But when you try to do the observations, you seem to see the opposite of that, and that's where you can get confused as to what this whole leadership is about. But I think that individualism, or that kind of selfishness, is what makes us give new definitions and narratives, and we get to confuse people. Because if I'm privileged enough to have more information about what I'm supposed to do, I can try and tweak those principles to suit my narrative and confuse everybody else. So leadership, even if though I was not to gain monetary value out of it, but it takes the group to the destination, that for me would be the correct type of leadership.
Yeah, you spoke a very important point there about actually reading, on leadership. You quoted that, when you go into text of leadership, there is this thing of ethical leadership that is also thrown around. You also spoke about competition. The foremost question that I would ask is, how do we kill that competition? And also, when coming to leadership text or reading and everything like that, do you feel like maybe it can be very much important before leaders assume positions of power or positions of leadership to sort of school themselves on these things? Because I find that in most cases we just get in without maybe having a clear analysis and a clear view of the whole segment, and also the role of inductions in the process.
It's a tricky one, I should say, because there are people who do it without knowledge, but there are those who do it deliberately. When a person gets to be more smart, they can maneuver around your rules, and they will always escape because they are on top of the game in terms of knowledge, knowing the loopholes of what is supposed to be leading them somewhere. So, but you get people who actually honestly do not know that which they are doing is wrong because they were influenced by what they've seen elsewhere. To kill the competition, I would say yes, we can try and fight it. Yes, you've mentioned induction. But then the induction would need to really be reminding, the leaders of what exactly is it that they've been put there. But I think for as long as there's still fame, and fame now is being exaggerated by the presence of many social media platforms. So everybody wants to be famous, everybody wants to be at the top. We're still gonna struggle with this quite a lot. Some people go through it, only realize later on when they've wasted so much time and energy to say, well, I could have not, or I should have not. But for people who are very passionate about ethical leadership, we have to, it's just that we use different mechanisms. I'm not an activist type of a person. I've got my own way of approaching issues. I'll approach your calm type of, approaches, where we engage, in platforms that would not provoke emotions to a certain degree. So, and in those type of platforms, that's where we can try and address these points. But it gets to be difficult if you try to do it within the audience that doesn't agree in one point that there's something wrong. So if you're trying to solve a problem and people don't see a problem, then that on its own, it's still another problem. It's a tricky type of thing, but I think it's still doable.
No, great insights there, Mr. Lesiba Kekana. So besides being passionate about leadership, another thing that I know that you're so much passionate about is imparting knowledge. And this has led you to create Legaboka Inspirations, which is a series of workshops and seminars that focuses on self-development, covering topics such as passion, business, leadership, creativity, patience, hard work, education, etc. I've seen some of your work, and I think there is quite a very huge need, because my exposure of that kind of work mostly comes from the West. Your Tony Robbins, your Tom Billier and everything. Of course, in South Africa, you do have, people like your VTs, Nicolette Mashiles and everything like that. How did you find, this journey, and how did you find people? Are they responding well, to the whole segment, or is still something that perhaps we still need to reinforce into the, as in when we move along around these things of self-development and everything? Because I find self-development to be actually very quite important, because it's one aspect that if it's addressed very well, we can advance exponentially in our careers, in our finances, spirituality, and so forth and so on. So how did you find the experience, and are people really coming along?
Let me just start a little bit of a background of what put me into that direction. It's important for people who probably will be having questions as to, why would you want to start something like this? That kind of action. But it comes from far. I would say I assumed some sort of leadership from primary school level, where you would lead classes, you lead some sort of activities in primary school. Of course, in primary school, you've got little experience. You rely solely on instructions, but I was carrying out that kind of functions. And then in high school as well, I did it where we formed part of debate groups where I got to be a chairperson, which was a nice exposure that taught me about leadership and all of these kind of things. And I used to lead classes as well. Classroom groups, specifically in subjects like mathematics and science. We used to do those groups. So I would lead a lot of them from, I would say from grade 8 up until grade 12. And in some instances, I actually would teach some other classes in the absence of teachers. So that's something that I come with from far back. So it's something that is it's just me. I put it in that way. I love it so much. So
yeah.
And then when entering into tertiary spiritual leadership, and then I got to work in corporate as well, I still carried on with that. So it's something that is very, very, very close to me. And the main reason why is that, I just always reflect in an environment within which I grow. A particular section of the village that I come from, it's notoriously known for Chaba school, and that stuck in my mind from my childhood to say this cannot be correct. This narrative needs to be changed at a later stage, obviously, because I'm the one who's observing it. Nobody's going to do that kind of a change. So my passion still lies in teaching people, on how to become better versions of themselves. So I started it long ago when I was in tertiary. I would go back to schools, would go around schools, provide motivations and stuff like that. So that's what I still even do now. So with Legaboka Inspiration, I just wanted to take it to the next level, because now I've got so much experience in the corporate world. I've got experience as well in the business, a little bit of experience in the business side of things. So I just wanted to take it to the next level so that I accommodate for the next goals, And you were very correct. These are the things which are very popular in overseas, not locally here. But I've found that a lot of people are centric in around one space. People wait to be rich first, so that they can start this kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
For me, I've always said no. I'm not that kind of an individual. I don't care whether I'm still staying in a back room or I'm still staying in a shack. For as long as I feel that with valuable knowledge that I can share with people, I'm gonna do that. You understand? So that's one of the reasons why I started Legaboka Inspiration, because I think it was quite a surprise for people who are very close to me, knowing me to be that kind of a quiet street leader.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, this guy is a photographer, and how did he do it? When did he get time? And then that fascinated quite a lot of people to that approach. And with that kind of experience, that's when you try and teach people to say, yes, you can still do things. When you are given an opportunity to do something, you focus on what it is. When I was in leadership, I was focused on what leadership is, and I was just determined to make sure that I reach the goals. And then when I switched and I got into the other spaces, and I tried to push to the greater heights. So with the Legaboka Inspiration, I would say yes, the reception was quite well. I just took my chances and said, let me do this thing and see if it will work. Because I've been getting inboxes from people who would say, we want to learn from you, and it would be so many of them. And I thought, okay, how about I make this thing public and let's try this thing out. And to my surprise, I really didn't expect that when I started there would be such a great audience, and boom, it was there. And the feedback that I got and the interaction that I still have with some of the attendees gave me assurance that maybe not a bad start, So I can't claim that it's at a very top-notch level, because that's not the focus at the moment. I want people who, at the moment, are still struggling and they do not necessarily have resources, whether it's cash or any other type of resource, to be able to access this kind of material and be able to take themselves to the greater. So I've done 2 workshops so far, and all were fully attended to.
No, great stuff. Really great stuff. One of the things that I've observed though in South Africa, around people who actually come with that kind of, because it's a disruption of also mindset. because you are coming not only with education but a way of doing things, a way of thinking and everything like that. And that seems to be very difficult at some point, because I've seen some of the people who do this getting criticized, some of them being dragged along and everything like that, and of which at some point I was like, maybe we're not ready for this kind of knowledge. Maybe sometimes the knowledge is too much for us. And then as Black people we need such a lot, but I always find in most cases that sometimes there is this resistance of some sort, whereby people feel like they're wasting their time. People feel like, who are you to tell us this and everything like that. And some of the people that have been criticized, people will go and look at their credentials and be like, but this and this and this and everything like that. Are you worried about those kind of things? Have you experienced those kind of things as yet?
Well, in my life, I've trained myself not to worry more about what people say. Some of the comments, way negative comments that people get to say about me, reach me from people who basically would care much and they were hurt. But I do not find them hurting to a greater degree that I can stop, because you have to, if you're passionate about something, you have to really put your thoughts on it. That why are you doing it, and who are your audience and your opposers? How are you then going to deal with it in this world? No matter how you achieve, no matter what kind of wonders you do to people, there will always be opposers. There will always be people who are smarter than you are, and they would want to demonstrate that. We have experienced that, luckily enough, in leadership, where somebody just want to challenge you on a constitution to say, try to expose you that you do not know much about it. So that is not my worry at all. I worry more about what I want to achieve. So I don't want to be like others that I see, trying to attack them. That's not my strategy. I just try to filter whatever that I find to be disturbing and focus on the target market. There will always be people who are willing to listen.
Yeah.
And you will be able to check, you will be able to see who those are, and then you give attention to those who really are interested in what you want to deliver. Those who are not, definitely not a target market. I mean, the same goes to business as well. I can put in a service or product there with prices. So they will come and attack. But again, lately I've learned that this is just a leprosy, of social media. Social media now is becoming to be that thing where if you can just, the first person who comments, the rest will tend to do that kind of, follow that type of a comment. If it's bad, they all go negative. If it's good, they all follow. So I definitely do not worry much about the name. Say they will always be there, and for me to say I don't expect it, then I will be lying to myself.
Yeah. Hey, you touched on another aspect there of social media, man, and that is another thing. I think I've been just, I took a back seat, this recent days, just to because I don't like the trajectory anymore. It seems like with social media now, it's more like, I think it's I was actually watching a certain documentary by, I forgot the name of the guy from the States. The guy used to actually work for Facebook, and then he was talking about how destructive it is, and how it has also created this robot people, whereby now we have sort of theorized real life, which is not real, because what we normally see on Facebook is not really, probably when you post on Facebook, you post your great best picture, you post yourself in the best, you never take out the bad things and everything like that. But we're going to talk about social media when we talk about social engineering, because that is another part that I think it will be a disservice for me not to talk to you about social engineering, particularly as someone who is in the cybersecurity space. But